Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to day 3 of our new and COVID-19 adapted Toys for Engineers event, which we're bringing to you live via Toys4Engineers.ie and the Waterford Chamber Facebook page. Today's panel discussion, which is sponsored by Cobotics Skillnet, will focus on ICT, Cobotics, and automation. And although if the last 2 days is anything to go by, any topic could actually feature. We're delighted to be joined by Dr. Ken Thomas, Head of School of Engineering at WIT, as today's chair. And I would also like to add at this point that it's great to see some progress being made in the technological university front. And we were glad to hear yesterday's announced funding of €5.1 million to the Technological University of the Southeast. And this, together with the appointment by the government of Tom Boland as project lead, I suppose is bringing this whole technological university much closer to reality. And it will be great to see it delivered for the young people of Waterford and the business community that we represent here in the region. Before I hand you over to Ken, though, I just wanted to let you know what else has been happening and is happening as part of the Toys for Engineers event this year. The Meet the Buyer sessions are ongoing with nearly 100 meetings scheduled across the 3 days, during which time we are connecting Indigenous companies and multinational companies in the hope of them doing business together. And this has been a collaborative effort between ourselves, IDA Ireland and Enterprise Ireland. And in these times, I suppose more than ever, any support that we can give our business community is so important. We're delighted to be joined by companies from across the country, and I sincerely hope there's good business being done through these meetings. In addition, we've had our digital expo. You would have seen a selection of videos at the start of our stream. They've been going on over the last 3 days as well, and there are more to come after our panel discussion today. Please take the time to actually watch these videos. They just might have the service or product that you need and have been looking for, and we'd be happy to connect you. We're also using this event to encourage anybody looking to move to Waterford to review the large amount of live roles which are currently available here. And thanks to the support of Crystal Valley Tech, we have a video of these jobs at toys4engineers.ie. So please log in there as well. The past few days have been busy, to say the least. And yes, it has been challenging to keep this event alive this year, but we have relished the challenge, and we're proud to have delivered an innovative event alongside all our stakeholders. So thank you to our daily sponsors, IDA Ireland, Cobotics Skillnet, and the Waterford Local Enterprise Office, and to Enterprise Ireland and Crystal Valley Tech for all their hard work. And last but by no means least, a special thank you to Waterford City and County Council, our overall sponsor. So finally, can I ask you all to be safe and compliant with government guidelines so that we can all get back to the WIT Arena next year for Toys for Engineers 2021. So over to you, Ken. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Gerald. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, everybody. Actually, thanks to Gerald, Linda, Angela, Niall, and all the team involved in Toys for Engineers. Strange times for everyone, as Gerald just said there, but it's fantastic that Toys for Engineers was able to adapt and continue. Normally, we'd be in the WIT arena with about 150 physical displays and an opportunity to see the technologies at first hand. However, the COVID-driven innovation has led us to being online, and again, it's different, and we're making the most of it. And actually, there are some plus points, as Gerald pointed out as well. So, as Gerald said, my name is Ken Thomas, head of school here in engineering in WIT. I've been privileged to be part of the organising team of Toys for Engineers for the past 6 years. And we've had a very interesting journey from a relatively small event to quite a large event. But the overall objectives have remained consistent. We're trying to promote engineering and the key role of engineering in all its forms across all sectors. So engineering cuts across all business sectors, really. We're trying to demonstrate new and emerging technologies, and the people we have here today will definitely be able to testament to those. again, and encourage their adoption. Obviously, we want to bring new technologies, more awareness across the Waterford and the southeast, and hopefully get better, more adoption, more technology adoption across the region. We're generally trying to help Irish and Irish-based businesses as well. And again, Gerald mentioned the Meet the Buyer event. So we want more business within the region and the country, and more and better jobs. These are very simple objectives, but that's kind of what we're trying to do. And again, as somebody involved in education and people, we want good careers and better careers for our graduates to go into, and we want them to contribute to that whole ecosystem as well. So I think IDA and Enterprise Ireland are supporting us, and again, it's very much part of their wheelhouse as well. Today, you're all welcome. This is the third conference, as Gerald just said, with the title of ICT, Automation and Robotics. Conference 1 and 2 over the last 2 days were excellent, and thanks again to the moderators, Brenda McDonald and Fergal Brophy, and indeed all the speakers. It was very, very interesting. We're intent on keeping up the standard today, so there's no pressure on us whatsoever, but we'll do our best. We're also very conscious of the mixed audience. We're not exactly sure who's online. We have a lot of registrations, but some people are just streaming in. We have a mix of obviously company representatives, owners, managers, engineers of all types, but we also have maybe students and people looking for different careers or a career in engineering as well. So we're kind of aware of talking to a mixed audience when we're here today. So we'll be trying to inform and advise you as best we can, and we hope that you enjoy the next hour or so with us. So as I said, I'm delighted that we have the 4 experts here today who will be sharing their knowledge and answering questions. I'm going to invite each one in turn to introduce themselves and maybe give an overview of their organization just to get things going. And if it's okay with Dermot, I'm going to start with you, Dermot. Dermot is the manager of the Cobotics Skillnet and is sponsor of today's event. So thanks again, Dermot, and over to you.
Thank you, Ken. My name is Dermot O'Neill. I'm the network manager of Cobotics Skillnet. And firstly, I'd like to say that I'm delighted that Cobotics Skillnet is continuing to be one of its sponsors for this very exciting event, and delighted that it's going so well so far. Cobotics Skillnet was formed in mid-2018 based on demand from manufacturing companies in Ireland. So we set up the Cobotics Skillnet to encourage and help and educate organizations around the adoption of technology, including cobotics, robotics, and smart technologies. We have a very educated and knowledgeable steering committee that gives us the strategic direction for Cobotics Skillnet go forward. One of the main features and the main aims of Cobotics Skillnet is to increase the competitiveness of its member companies. And we feel one critical initiative around this whole area is the upskilling, cross-skilling, and workforce development that is necessary for organizations to adopt technologies going forward. Cobotics Skillnet offers a variety of training courses that are industry-led and industry-demanded, and we will, as part of our key performance indicators for 2020, will educate and train and network over 1,000 individuals and over 10,000 training days. So that gives an idea of the capacity of the network to fund up to 60% of the overall cost of these programs. So that's been a huge change for Skillnet Ireland as a government agency to be able to offer such high levels of funding. So there's basically no excuse for people not to upskill and cross-skill, especially with the ongoing advancement of technologies within our manufacturing sectors.
Yeah, thanks, Dermot. Absolutely. So I think the whole upskilling agenda is in all our minds. I mean, the days of just going to college once and that's it are well and truly gone for all of us. And I think the online lifelong learning aspect of all of what we do is very important. So thank you for that. I might come to Brian Cooney, just to follow on the robotics front. Brian is from KUKA, the general manager of KUKA Robotics Ireland. So Brian, over to you.
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, so as Ken said, my name is Brian Cooney, and I'm the GM for KUKA Robotics here in Ireland. KUKA Robotics is one of the top tier, the top 4 robotics manufacturers worldwide. Our focuses tend to be right across the whole gambit manufacturing sectors, everything from aerospace to automotive to electronics to consumer goods, food and beverage, medical device, healthcare, logistics, and so on. So quite a range of industrial sectors that we operate across. Some of those obviously not so applicable to Ireland, namely the automotive, although aerospace and automotive tier one actually do figure quite strongly here in Ireland. So we're right across the whole range of industrial processes. So whether that's injection molding machines, or whether it's welding, or whether it's pick and place within consumer goods, food and beverage, and so on. In Ireland here, we have a dedicated centre which includes for training, for sales, for application engineering, and we have a service team here to cover our installed base and customer base. We operate and we go to market through a network of system partners and integrators. So right across the country, we have a dedicated team of integrators, loyal partners that specialize maybe in different sectors, some maybe in medical device, some in the food side, some in tier one, and so on. But right across the board, we have a full range of system integrators, whether it be in Ireland or whether it be further afield, that'll help support our end customers and indeed their end customers further afield. We have a very strong focus here in Ireland in developing relationships, with the research institutions, with the likes of the ITs like WIT, with the ETBs, with the research centres such as Irish Manufacturing Research and Confirm. We're also responsible here for Northern Ireland, so we have very strong links with Queen's University and the University of Ulster as well. So right across the board in terms of industrial robotics, but we also have a very, very wide range of medical robotics, which is used in the field of theatre and surgical robotics. So that's it for KUKA and what we do. Thanks, Ken.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Thank you for that. And yeah, a lot of the topics you touched on there, we'll probably come back to in the future questions as we go along. At this stage, we'll come across to Frank Madden, who's the founder and CEO of Crest Solutions, based in Cork, but a global, could you say an international company anyway, Frank? And then maybe just give an overview of your company, what you do, and what services you offer.
Perfect. Thanks, Ken. Like Ken says, my name is Frank Madden. I am the CEO and founder of Crest Solutions. I founded the company 22 years ago, so we've been up and running quite a long time. And we describe ourselves as an Irish multinational, and we're an engineering service company. So we basically provide engineering solutions mainly to pharmaceutical companies right across the globe. So we have 350 people based here out of Cork, and we have 9 offices. We have offices in Sweden, in Belgium, the UK, and we have 3 offices across the US. We'd be best known for over the years for industrial vision. So we've been a partner of Cognix Vision for many, many years, and we would have installations of our own products in most of the pharmaceutical companies in Ireland. We'd be very, very well known. But in the last year, we became an international company where we merged with 2 other companies to form a company called CXV Global. And our mission really is to bring industrial automation to large pharmaceutical companies that have very large global deployments. So in the last number of years, we've moved from just industrial vision to quite a big resourcing solutions part of the business where we place engineers into our customers as project managers. We'd be very well known for the largest implementer of industrial serialization for the pharmaceutical industry. So we would have quite a lot of engineers placed with our pharmaceutical customers, managing their serialization projects and then managing the technology after we implement it. So in the last 2 years, we've become quite big in very modern approach to digital work instructions. So what we do with digital work instructions is we take the typical 80 or 90 page standard working operating procedure, and we convert that using the best in technology to so that people working in industry can see their instructions being displayed on augmented reality and virtual reality and on iPads and things like that. So we're quite an innovative company, and we're in a hiring mode. We announced last year 100 jobs that we're filling this year. And even despite COVID, we filled 60 jobs so far this year, and we're looking for a further 40 people. So we're very much reach out to the students of WIT that are there, that are interested in technology jobs and working all over the world. We're actively looking for quite a lot of people at the moment. So looking forward to the question and answering today, and hopefully we can contribute something to this fantastic event that has been organised.
Great, that's great. Thanks, Frank, for that. And yeah, great to hear about all those jobs. I mean, obviously we're all interested in jobs, and our students and graduates are. So very, very good to hear. At this stage, hopefully we move seamlessly across to maybe Wayne Fenlon from Rockwell Automation. Obviously, following on from Frank there's probably some synergies and so on. So Wayne, over to you, Wayne, if you can hear us.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. So just introduce myself. My name is Wayne Fenlon. I work for Rockwell Automation, part of the sales organization here in Ireland. For many people, I don't know if they know much about Rockwell, but Rockwell are a global organization. We're headquartered in Milwaukee. We're present in over 80 countries. Here in Ireland, we have 2 facilities, one in Dublin and one in Cork. We house one of the Centre of Excellences for Life Science and Process Technologies in Cork. We go across multiple industries, life science, medical device, CPG, oil and gas, etc. And I suppose we're probably more well known for being the owner and manufacturer of the iconic Allen Bradley suite of products. So yeah, look, I'm probably coming from a manufacturing perspective, but with I suppose a touch across all sectors, all industries, yeah, just glad to be here and look forward to today's session. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Wayne. And I suppose just to summarize, we obviously have a fantastic panel here, but it's not just obviously all focused on Ireland, but we're very much with a global perspective as well. It's coming across. Obviously, KUKA and Rockwell are global, and again, Frank and his team at Crest have that global perspective as well. So a lot of the concept behind Toys4Engineers is about taking the best of what's out there globally and bringing it back to Ireland and making sure that in Ireland we're at the cutting edge, or even actually leading in some cases, hopefully, some of the technologies and their adoption. So at this stage, I might to jump to the first question is about investing in technologies. A lot of companies are probably out there of varying sizes. Frank, you mentioned that you deal with the bigger companies, but obviously we got smaller companies as well. So what would be your general advice in investing in technology solutions in the context of ICT, automation, and robotics? Probably automation in your case, maybe.
Yeah, I think well, COVID is really forcing us down to adapt technology, whether we like it or not. The pharmaceutical industry has been known as being very conservative in terms of adoption of technology, but that's rapidly changing because really technology brings more than just cost savings to pharmaceutical companies. It brings a level of compliance, but I think there's been a lot of sort of scare tactics about technology and that technology is replacing jobs. We're not seeing that at all. As technology is adapted, we're seeing more jobs being required. And that's demonstrated in our scaling. And the reason that is that technology has been used to augment the human activity and to make human activity, I suppose, much more compliant and much easier. So we generally say that when you implement technology, we look at, normally in manufacturing, you look at the 4 M's, man, material, machine, and method. So we don't get involved in materials, but we very much get involved in the man, material, and method. And what we're finding is that when you implement technology, you need to spend as much thought about how the technology will be adapted through really through the training of the people, and also through the methods of how work changes once you implement technology. But technology has moved from just buying a piece of hardware and implementing and validating it. Now our customers are looking at a far wider suite in their project implementation and looking right across man, machine, and methods.
Okay, thanks. That's I like that the 3 M's or 4 M's. Very, very simple idea, but very true. And one can't be disjointed from the other, is what you're saying, Frank. Really, they all go
exactly
together.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. In terms of specific into the robotics area, Brian, and I don't know in terms of adoption of robots and robotics in Ireland, but do you see it growing year on year? And would you advise companies in that respect?
Yeah, so I mean, robotics has and automation in general, has been growing, in double digits, year on year in Ireland. There was a time when there would have been quite a low uptake, in robotics. I mean, Ireland is still very, very far behind in terms of the rest of the world. We'd be more aligned with the uptake per 10,000, that the UK would see, and they're also quite far behind. But in the last 4, 5, 6 years in particular, we've seen a significant increase in the uptake across robotics and automation. And what we would say to companies, regardless of scale, whether you're an SME or whether you're a multinational, is to understand what your automation journey is about, to understand, what your drivers are, why you're going down this route. Is it quality? Is it the reduction of unit cost, or maybe the reduction in labor count, or maybe to be able to redeploy labor and so on, or even in these current times of COVID, to introduce social distancing. Automation can be a great benefactor for that as well. But it's a case of understanding, what your drivers are. You don't have to go for the big bang, with automation. You can start off quite small. You need to identify the right projects, the ones that are going to deliver the return on the investment, for you. Not necessarily the one that's keeping you awake at night, the one that's the most complex, process within your facility, but the one that's going to actually bring the most return to you in the short term. Because there are other things you need to consider when you're introducing automation, and that's acceptance, by the workforce, is certainly a key one. Your first project, if it is your first project, within automation, you need to ensure that it actually succeeds. So sometimes if you take the most complex project, it's also the one that's possibly, the most likely one to fail. So make sure you pick a project, that's going to return on the investment, and it's going to succeed, for the company. That then gets the buy-in, for future automation, and it starts you well off on your automation journey. Another thing I would say is that, when you're considering your automation, pick the right partners. So your machine builders, your system integrators, do your homework. Make sure you pick the right partner on it, somebody preferably, who has experience in the manufacturing field that you operate in, and also future-proof your investment. So don't always go just necessarily for the streamlined version of your automation. Make sure that you have enough capability, within the system, that should you embark, on an Industry 4 strategy, or a wider Industry 4 strategy down the road, that you have the communication capability within the existing equipment that you might not utilize straight away, but that you might utilize in 3, 4, 5 years' time. So you need to be able to ensure that you provide for the data collection, maybe for preventative maintenance, and so on. So those are the kind of scenarios that you need to look at. You need to look at your existing internal skill sets. Do you need to upskill, reskill so your existing workforce, to champion automation when it's introduced? And as I say, make sure that you have the buy-in right across the team. So it's all very well for the engineering team to look at a project and say, look, this is great, we can automate this here. But you need to have the full buy-in right across the board. You need the management team on board, and you need the financial team on board. So make sure you just you embark on your automation journey, having the full support right across your team.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Brian. Yeah, some very good general tips there, absolutely. And Wayne, I don't know, do you have something similar to add in terms of adoption of some of your automation products and so on? And maybe one of the questions some people ask, well, how do we invest and bring in new technology while keeping the ship afloat, or while keeping the operation running? Is that an issue you come across maybe in your business?
Yeah, look, Brian touched on some interesting points. I suppose for what we're seeing is obviously with the security and scalable products is obviously a key driver too. In terms of pilots and understanding of new technologies, keeping the production afloat. Yeah, look, there's plenty of pilots underway at the moment, but it's all about how you, I suppose, develop and maybe start up your own development environment, having the right team around you. and just basically taking it in baby steps, in that you look at your use case, identify your use cases, and working through them, and then obviously not trying to boil the ocean, as they say. Just make sure that your use cases are capturing more KPIs than just the one single KPI. So.
Okay, very good. Dermot, I'll turn to you now, because all three of Brian, Frank, and Wayne there talked about people very much, not just in terms of technology adoption and obviously bringing people with them and with you and with us. And that's very much part of what you do in Cobotics. So what are your thoughts on that idea of how you bring people with the technology?
Yeah, so Cobotics Skillnet facilitates training, and it's a national organisation that facilitates training and upskilling, cross-skilling in Ireland. But it also has international reach in terms of its research, and we collaborate with institutes like the University of Kentucky and Utah State University, Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and National Institute of Standards and Education, and EU Robotics, to name just a few. So we do bring that research back to our member companies. In relation to the question around investing in technology, so our 12 member companies, when we got together in mid 2018, we basically went on an education journey. We benchmarked to each one of the companies where the member companies visited each other companies around the whole knowledge sharing approach of where to go and how to adapt technology. And one of the things out of that learning exercise was the development of a strategy. A transformation digital strategy is a key element of where you're going. So the first thing around any strategy is to know where you are, and then to make sure that you put a strategy in place, know where you're going. And that's a critical factor before you dip your toe in any element of this, to understand the process of where you're going. So one of the things is that around and there's 7 areas around the adoption of technology. Some issues with the plan. What is your plan around that? What is your available capital that Brian mentioned? The whole learning curve, and this one is the one that really fits into the Cobotics Skillnet area, around the learning curve of people. And maybe then there's a rigid infrastructure that you have in place, needs to be above 100 years. Imply reluctance and the whole fear factor. And I think Frank mentioned that whole space around, I suppose, around the terminology that's used at the moment in terms of this space and the fear that can be lost over the adoption of technology. And we have to eliminate that fear, reduce that fear. One of the other areas is outdated systems, and we talked about, Brian mentioned the whole area of data analytics and connectivity of equipment, and then there's the last area of privacy concerns. So, when you mentioned the whole area of engineering and technology and digitalization, there is a huge area to take into account once you move on this journey.
Okay, thanks, Dermot. Yeah, lots of big topics there and commonality. We might come back to them in a second. We're going to just maybe take a short break now for there's a video to be played for Cobotics actually, and we'll be back to you hopefully in about 2 minutes, I think it is. Over to you, Dean.
Cobotics is the combination of the human and the robot interaction, so that the human and the robot can work closely together in a safe environment. The robot is totally safe, it's got sensors, it's not going to hurt you, and it can do tasks that the human can't really do. So it's absolutely fantastic technology.
Cobotics is the collaboration of robots and humans. It is the answer to future competitiveness within the marketplace. So I would advise any organizations that have processes, work processes that can be automated, should actively pursue that situation.
What this is bringing with it is immense potential, immense opportunity for enterprise, for businesses here in Ireland, and particularly small firms, but equally it's bringing challenges in that tasks and jobs that were once thought to be the sole domain of humans are now being replaced by technology. But what unites both of those, of course, is upskilling, training, and lifelong learning.
It's the future. It's the future for industry, and it's where I think a lot of companies will be going in the future. So we can actually build the skills of our guys who come with their background in engineering, but we can actually get them to learn the skills on the job. We can actually build on their skills and tailor it to the type of business that we have.
Well, we see Cobotics being hugely important going forward. We see applications that are only possible with Cobotics. We see lots of applications that are only possible with industrial robotics, but it's opened up a whole new market. We hope to see them in a lot more factories going forward. We hope to see a lot of people thinking down the line of using Cobotics rather than standard industrial robotics or custom-built automation.
It's not a new industry. Robotics, separate from Cobotics, has been around for 30 years, and we've had long roots and a long relationship with them. In 2018, a cluster of companies came together and with the support of Skillnet Ireland formed the Cobotics Skillnet, and that has made a huge difference to the sector already.
Skillnet Ireland are really leading the forefront when it comes to upskilling people, training people, and I'm so impressed by how in the know they are. How that they are right there with the customers and knowing what Irish industry needs and what's very important, and one of those key things is people and the movement of people and the upskilling of people.
Knowledge is key, learning is key, education is key. We see Skillnet's hugely important for educating people that want to reskill, people that are currently in factories that need a little bit of education around robotics or a bit of knowledge. A knowledge base, I suppose, and Skillnets is the key to that.
Okay, welcome back everybody. Just in case anybody new has joined us, my name is Ken Thomas. I've got 4 experts here today with me. We've got Dermot O'Neill from Cobotics, the sponsor. We've got Wayne Fenlon from Rockwell Automation, Brian Cooney from KUKA Robotics, and Frank Madden from Crest Solutions. So we're delighted you could join us. We've had a couple of questions already in terms of technology adoption. I'm just going to move it slightly, the agenda towards the green agenda. It's a bit left field, really. One of the things we were planning this year for Toys4Engineers was seeing how the green agenda was going to impact on all the technologies across engineering. And I might just ask each of the 4 speakers here today what their thoughts are on the EU strategy, of which it seems to be the recovery strategy for European Union is all about digitalization transformation, and digital transformation, I should say, and the green agenda. And the two are kind of going hand in hand, or that seems to be, it's going to affect policy, it's going to affect taxation, it's going to affect lots of different things. So I'd just be curious as to hear how each of our speakers think about how the technologies we're talking about here today, ICT, robotics, and automation, will help or adapt to that kind of concept of a bigger green agenda. I might start with Frank. Frank, over to you.
Well, there's a number of things in the green agenda. I think one of the things that's going to be very interesting in the pharmaceutical world will be, how are we going to be able to manufacture probably 20 billion extra vaccines over the next number of years because of COVID. And in the pharmaceutical industry, generally the efficiency of the plants is quite low because there's lots of changeovers and lots of cleaning and lots of time taken between changing over from one product to another. But one of the areas I think that is really going to change in the pharmaceutical industry will be bringing the efficiencies of production lines, which can be in the low 30s or even the high 20s in terms of percentages that they actually run, up to much higher efficiencies like you'd see in the automotive industry or in other industries. And I think what that is going to mean is really, from a green perspective, it's going to mean that all the infrastructure and all the assets that are there in the pharmaceutical industry are going to be used far more, and they're going to become far more efficient. So I would imagine that over the next number of years, the amount of, I suppose, power and the amount of energy and the amount of resources that go into producing pharmaceutical products is going to get far more efficient. And automation is going to be a very, very big part of that. And there's going to be an awful lot in terms of the efficiencies of changing over production lines in the pharmaceutical world in a much, much more efficient way. And that's going to really, really be very positive for the pharmaceutical industry, but it's also going to be very positive for the green agenda. And we've just recently produced a product that automated the changeover of lines through industrial vision, so that you no longer need humans to inspect a line as you change from one product to another. And that patented product is on trial with a lot of our pharmaceutical customers. But that sort of efficiency, I think, will be very, very positive towards the green agenda in the future.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Yeah, absolutely, very interesting. Wayne, I think Rockwell might be part of that world as well, in terms of, obviously, the lean agenda generally and the whole automation world are probably linked to a certain extent with that green idea, being less waste and so on. Wayne, have you any comments on any of those?
Yeah, I suppose, look, the way the market is now and the trends within the market and the IoT strategies, I suppose artificial intelligence, machine learning, they're all playing their part in terms of better performance of production lines, making smarter data-driven decisions, maybe in terms of predictive maintenance, downtime. So I suppose if you relate back to the green agenda, saving of energy, less carbon emissions, making factories more efficient, taking COVID into consideration, the keeping people off site from remote working, remote aids. So the use of augmented reality, virtual reality, we see a lot of OEMs and machine line or production lines now been, I suppose, commissioned virtually using some of our technologies around augmented reality. So you can fat lines, sat lines. So it's, I suppose, it's just about, if you look at it from a product perspective, it's about choosing more energy efficient products, optimizing your production lines, better OEE, and better workforce efficiencies.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And from a KUKA perspective, Brian, is this on your agenda at the moment? Do you think about the parts that go into making the robotics and the energy use and so on, or what are the thoughts from KUKA at the moment?
Yeah, very much so. I mean, it's across the. It's across whether it's in the manufacturing sectors, or whether it's in our own manufacturing. So it's very much on the agenda in both areas. So in terms of the actual manufacturing sectors and manufacturing processes themselves, and both Frank and Wayne, have hit on the points of efficiencies and consistencies. The other one that I would throw in there is quality. So when you introduce robotics and automation, your efficiency and your consistency automatically goes up, and the and rejects go down. So you end up with a much reduced level of waste in terms of the product itself. Also, very much so now is that over the years, companies would have had their own products developed and so on, brought to market, and hopefully then when they're very successful with the product and they're trying to scale up, then they start looking to introduce robotics and automation. And quite often it can be difficult at that time because the nature of the product and the structure of the product is already defined. Nowadays, most companies, because they have a wide experience in manufacturing engineers, so they actually design for manufacture, they design for automation, and that's a cradle to grave concept, so they're building in the design of the product, number one, the materials that go into it. Number two, how it's going to be made in terms of robotics and automation. And number three, then obviously how it's going to be scrapped and recycled, at the end of its journey. From a product perspective, in terms of KUKA and the products that we deliver onto the market, again, very much the same concept. We design our products, with a view to encompassing everything from cradle to grave. So from its designed, built, installed, commissioned, and eventually decommissioned and recycled. In addition to that, then in terms of the energy consumption, So we've a lot of projects going on, in terms of the manufacturing of the robots, where we can actually return energy into the network. So similar to some of the car technologies, where maybe under braking forces and so on, that we can actually put energy back into the system. So those are all things that would be on our green agenda, and I think very much, obviously, so then on the end user's agenda as well.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah. So, Dermot, I suppose we're more in the people rather than the technology to a certain extent in some ways. But how do you feel the green might affect what you do in Cobotics and the Skillnet? Do you see that green agenda having an effect on what you do in the future?
Absolutely. Over the last couple of years, you had health and safety. Now you've got EHS, you have environmental health and safety. So it's up there very much as part of the culture of organizations. And not only is it a culture of the leadership, it's a culture of everybody in the organization. So, with the strong manufacturing presence within Waterford, a lot of your companies are chasing the Shingo Prize, which is an international benchmark, and some of those have won in terms of South Tipperary, in terms of Boston Scientific and Clonmel, and Abbott Vascular and Clonmel, and a wider field of other organizations are viewing the principles as part of one of your actually presentations. Ball Corporation are looking at the whole guiding principles of Shingo, and embedded in that is the whole environmental agenda. It's one of the key features to look for, and they look for that presence of that engineering, of that environmental culture across the organization from top to bottom and across. But also what's happening with these companies is that they're ensuring that their supplier base of companies are also adhering to their environmental processes and policies. So not alone is a company looking at it, they're actually going wider afield. And one of the things Toyota Motors in the US, and don't ask me how they're doing this, but they're looking at becoming to eliminate compressed air in the manufacture of their cars over the next couple of years. So that's again looking at this whole area of carbon neutral, and we've heard during the week about Ireland looking at 2050 to become carbon neutral. We all have a part to play in that, and the education of manufacturing staff is a key element of that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and the culture aspect, very important. It's very interesting. The Meet the Buyer event, which is associated with the part of the Toys4Engineers, a big part, is that whole supply chain partnering of the big company with the smaller company. And you're right, in terms of values and culture, they've got to be lined up as well as everything else. So it is part of that, getting a cultural into everybody that this green agenda is here for real, and we are on that path, and we need to take it seriously. So I think that's cutting across all the sectors. So thanks for that. I think we'll turn to it may not be the final question, but it'll be close to it. A lot of conversation going on about clustering in Ireland. Ireland's a very small country. We all know that. Everybody seems to know everybody. And even ourselves here today, we all kind of half know each other or have met each other before. So it is that's a big advantage in lots of ways to us in Ireland. And that relationship between education and industry and indeed the government support agencies is really important to make that work properly. One of the big things that Enterprise Ireland, and I suspect even the IDA, are trying to push is the whole idea of clustering, where basically we leverage the knowledge between that might exist in academia but isn't in industry, or vice versa, or indeed where can the support agencies come in. I might just go around the table to see who's involved in any cluster or what your thoughts are, but maybe sharing ideas and getting involved in groups as opposed to, and we're all working for individual organizations, but this idea of partnering and clustering to help the bigger agenda, to help ourselves and to help the overall country. The Americans are great for inventing words, and I came across this word in the 1990s, co-opetition, where you compete and cooperate at the same time. I see Dermot nodding there, but basically this idea, and that's what we all do. We all compete and cooperate as well at the same time. And I think in Ireland, we're trying to get a better balance of that cooperation, and for all our benefit, really. And that's kind of maybe just something I'll touch on. I might start with you, Dermot, and then I'll go around the table then with other people.
Yeah. Cobotics Skillnet is just a large cluster. That's exactly what it is. It's a network of people who will share knowledge. I just want to touch on the Shingo Prize, and let me just talk about that as a cluster within Ireland. Ireland has been the recipient, Irish-based companies have been the recipient of 13 Shingo awards since its initiation. That's the highest in the world. And Ireland still holds that. And people ask me over the years, being involved with those 13 different companies, what is the secret sauce, especially from other jurisdictions like the UK and the US and Europe. And the one answer I give them is the freely sharing of knowledge within Ireland. And as you mentioned, Ken, across universities, across government agencies, and across organizations. And I think it's a cultural thing in Ireland that we are willing to share, and that we're able maybe to remove the proprietary bit a certain amount to allow other organizations share, so we can all improve the bar and look. And I think we all wear the Irish jersey. I think that's where part of it is as well. So definitely proud to be part of any cluster within Ireland that is part of a genuine knowledge sharing. And I've been involved in this whole knowledge sharing for about 20 years. And I've never asked for people that, that the recipient of the information is not sharing back. We don't look at it like that. We look at a situation that sharing knowledge is gaining knowledge. And I think that's very much part of the Irish culture and setup.
Yeah, very good. I agree. Frank, maybe, I don't know if you have any experience of that from your own perspective and your own company.
Yeah, well, again, it's interesting. Irish companies, we're quite international, and well over 50% of our business would be international. And the amazing thing is when you meet another Irish company, we'll say at shows in Germany, extremely helpful to each other. We're not so helpful when we're in Ireland because we feel we compete a little bit more, but Irish companies outside of Ireland are absolutely fantastic. I think there's two things. I think it should be acknowledged what Enterprise Ireland and the IDA are extremely good at promoting clustering, both in Ireland and outside of Ireland. Things like Confirm, things like working with the colleges and so on. We do quite a lot of it, working with the colleges, with the IDA and with Enterprise Ireland. So there is a lot of clustering going on. Not so much between companies, but definitely between customers and state agencies and colleges. There is quite a lot of that going on. One of the clusterings that we've been involved in lately would be between us and various customers that would never get to meet each other otherwise. So we have set up a user group around serialization, where we basically set up meetings a few times a year where different companies that have serialization would get together and we would moderate on it. And that's very, very interesting because it's quite amazing how little cross-pollination there is between IDA companies in Ireland in terms of understanding what each other are doing, and any opportunity that they get where they have a safe environment to share information. Customers are very happy to do it. So we see user groups as a very, very good way of that cross-pollination. And that's been something that we've been involved in quite a lot over the last number of years.
Okay, thanks, Frank. I'll come across to Brian. I don't know if Brian's any KUKA user group in Ireland or a global KUKA user group, or what networks are you involved in?
Yeah, so I mean, globally, there's lots of different KUKA user groups, where KUKA engineers and user engineers and so on, share experiences and knowledge and so on. Locally, like I say, we've always been focused, in collaborating, with the national organisations, such as the Irish Manufacturing Research and Confirm. We've a lot of involvement, across the university spectrum, the IT spectrums, and so on. And I think Dermot, hit the nail very much on the head earlier on when he mentioned that, it possibly is a cultural thing, because as a multinational company, I'm heavily involved with a lot of our other subsidiaries and so on, and they kind of look at it, as God, you do what? You sit around the table with your competitors, and the end users sit around the same table with their competitors and so on, and you're sharing and exchanging information and knowledge and learnings and so on, and most of them can't grasp, that Ireland does that, and maybe to just have a different view on it. Our view on it, is that, look, this is a rising tide that lifts all boats. If the economy does well, if Ireland does well, we all do well out of it, and that comes right across the board, whether it's the academic institutions will do well out of it, the end users will do well out of it, and the suppliers will do well out of it, So I do think it's probably a uniquely Irish thing. Maybe there's other countries might contradict me, but I haven't come across them yet. And like I say, my experience of working with our other subsidiaries is that they think it's quite unique.
Yeah, very good, very good. Wayne, have you got a similar experience, or from Rockwell's automation point of view?
Yeah, I mean, look, as long as I suppose it's a positive note that customers, as long as they can exchange ideas and exchange experiences without compromising on IP or sensitive information. I mean, look, it's great for customers to get together and share their experiences. I mean, Ireland being so small, the majority of people will jump from company to company anyway. You'd be surprised how many people know each other and how many different companies they end up in. So it's a positive thing from within Rockwell ourselves. I mean, we rely, we have our own obviously solutions, business and deployment arm, but we would rely heavily on our system integrators and RCSIs. So there'd be a group of indigenous companies that would provide our solutions. So within that group and network internally in Rockwell, we'd obviously have our own, I suppose, sharing of information. So yeah, look, it's definitely something we see in Rockwell anyway, and we promote.
Very good, yeah. Maybe I just advertised one of the clusters. We're actually, I should point here, Engineering in the Southeast is a new cluster that's been supported by Enterprise Ireland, as Brian referred to there. So it's been formed last year. It's got 180 companies across the Southeast from all sectors. So we've got people from the pharma, the medtechs, the agri-food, construction, infrastructure, energy, and there's amazing lessons to be learned across all of these different organizations when they talk to each other. So we've gone after the skills agenda, which cuts across lots of different, more engineers of all types. We've gone after the research and innovation agenda as well, and generally publicizing and promoting engineering. So it takes a lot of organization, but there's an open door generally we find when we go and talk to the companies in the region. And ourselves, IT Carlo, the ETBs, the Southeast Skills Forum as well. So we're trying to connect all these silos and make sure we're all together. And generally speaking, people get it. Everybody's very busy, but if they find the time to get involved in a cluster, it's to everybody's benefit, really. You'll give information, but you'll also get a lot of knowledge back as well, I think. And I think fear over, staff leaving from one company to another, I think that's going to happen anyway. Our job in the Southeast is to build a pool of people and a pool of expertise. And if people move around, they move around, but at least we'll get the benefit from the clustering. So I think all of you kind of maybe probably support that concept, and we'd appreciate that. So thank you. And if anybody's online wants to get involved, we can contact me or Francis in Carlo or indeed Edmund Conley in the skills group. I'm sure we'll help you and get you involved in the network. I'm just going to finish up. I'm kind of conscious of the time. We're going to finish up on maybe final takeaways. And I'm just going to leave this open, really. So I was going to ask each of our presenters here today to maybe give a couple of pointers to our audiences as to what they might think about for the future, for the now. And obviously the now is very much COVID driven to a certain extent, but obviously in the medium to long term as well, what we all should be thinking in terms of technology and indeed in terms of our own careers. I might start with Frank, if that's okay, Frank.
Yeah, so I mean, in the last 2 years, we've hired about 200 people, and mostly we've hired them directly from colleges. So what I would say to any of the students that are out there is that I wouldn't be worried at all. I think you have an advantage over people that are much older in the way that you adapt and you don't understand just how much you're adapted to technology. And industry really wants young people and wants to bring all that technology into the factories. If I look in my lifetime, if you wanted to change a filter in your car, you bought a Haynes manual, and you had to buy the exact manual for your exact type car, and you spend the weekend going through diagrams of exactly how to do change the filter. Nowadays, you just go on, you look at YouTube, and you see exactly how to carry something out. So that same technology needs to be brought into industry, and the people who understand that technology and use it every day are the young people. So I think for any engineer that's in college, there's a very bright future, and that you'll be able to bring loads of new talents to industry. So you should look forward to it rather than being afraid that somehow technology is going to do people out of jobs. It's actually absolutely the opposite. So I would say there is a difficulty now for young people coming out of college in terms to get your first job. It's going to be quite difficult because it's very hard for us hiring companies to be able to train you up because of COVID and so on. But COVID isn't going to last forever. So I think it's a very, very bright future for any engineers that are in college at the moment.
Okay, thanks, Frank. Maybe Brian, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. I think when we went, just as a takeaway, in terms of the adoption of technology, this is about positioning, both companies and people, for the future. This is about creating efficiency, competitiveness. It's about, placing you on a world stage, competing against, low cost operations, further afield, so the adoption of technology in whichever form you do it is critical. Yeah. Frank is exactly right when he mentioned that there is a fear out there, that this kind of technology, robotics and automation and controls and so on is doing away with jobs. The reality of it is, and the facts are there, to prove it. That's not the case. Companies that adopt technology earlier tend to grow and employ more and more people. And in addition to those who are coming out from colleges and universities and so on as well, there is an absolute path for advancement for those people who are currently on the shop floor. So the guys who are maybe operating machines and so on, there's an opportunity for those guys now to upskill and reskill, and organizations like Dermot's, Cobotics, Skillnet, that provides the path for those kind of people to be able to get themselves, into higher value, higher paid jobs, with better job satisfaction. So I think in general, I think I would just sign off on a keynote. Look, the future for automation in Ireland is indeed a very, very bright one.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Wayne, any comments or any takeaways for our audience?
Look, I suppose just from an education perspective, I mean, the world sees our education system as one of the best. So, just remember that you're being trained to the highest level, and with the cluster of industry in Ireland, the amount of multinationals and all that are present in Ireland, the growth or the availability of growth within your career is there, and to take advantage of it. From a customer perspective, I suppose, look, COVID is here, and as Frank said, it's not going to be here forever. So if you can, it's about getting, I suppose, looking at your own internal production facilities, jumping on the digital journey, and putting plans in place now for when things do pick back up. Because if you're not doing it, I'm sure your competitors are. So that's my key takeaway at the moment.
Thanks, Wayne. And I'll move to Dermot. Obviously, Dermot mentioned there, but a lot of talk about people, not just the technology. So and the upskilling, which is, it's not just about the new graduates, I suppose. It's also people who are mid-career who are probably looking to maybe change and move on. So any thoughts or takeaways from you, Dermot?
You're on education and training is as a lifelong event at this stage. So one of the couple of takeaways that I have for the journey: start with a road, sit down as a group of people, a group of stakeholders, and start with developing a technology roadmap, and then invest heavily. And this is very, very important for the next few years, is for organizations to invest heavily in upskilling, cross-skilling, and their workforce development. Also look at peer-to-peer learning. Very, very important to find out best in class as you move on. And engagement at all levels of the organization to make sure.
I'm not sure if we have a technical problem at the moment with Dermot. We'll come back hopefully very soon. Dermot, are you online?
I am.
Sorry, Dermot. Yes. Slight break, and I'll go back over to you, Dermot. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So just around the whole area, did you get when I talked about the technology roadmap?
Yes, we got that bit, yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's around investing then in the whole area of upskilling and cross-skilling of professional and technical excellence, but also around make sure there's peer-to-peer learning going on. There's a huge area around it, finding out what's best in class within organizations, not only in Ireland, but internationally. And also collaboration with cluster groups, as you mentioned, and engagement of all employees at all levels is a critical factor for moving forward.
Great, perfect. Nice way to finish. And again, thanks, Ron. Very similar statements by everybody there. I think it's an exciting time. I know COVID is kind of clouding our picture at the moment, but if you see beyond COVID or through COVID, there are lots of potential exciting opportunities for companies and indeed individuals in the future. We're very excited here in Waterford in the southeast to try and drive on where we can across all the companies and sectors, and indeed with our young people and mid-career people who are looking to upscale and improve. A lot of automation removes repetitive, boring work and makes the job a bit more interesting, and that's in everybody's interest, I would have thought as well. So hopefully some of the new jobs are that bit more interesting rather than maybe some of the older jobs were slightly repetitive in some cases. So that's kind of part of the journey as well. So at this stage, I think we were coming at the end of our time. It's been a very quick hour, but I'd like to thank Dermot in particular, the Cobotics, Skillnet, and Dermot, and thank you for sponsoring today's event. We very much appreciate it and your time today. A big thank you to Frank Madden from Crest Solutions, from Wayne Fenlon from Rockwell Automation, and Brian Cooney from KUKA Robotics. Frank, Wayne, and Brian, really appreciate your time, and thanks so much for getting involved with us. I'm sure all of you would be happy to talk to anybody after this event if they want to contact you and investigate any of the new technologies or how you might be able to help them, especially the companies that are out there. So thank you again. I'm going to finish up by thanking a few other people. I'm going to thank Gerald, Linda, Angela, and Niall, and all the team in Waterford Chamber who would do a phenomenal job. And to get this event up and running has taken a huge effort from them, and we really appreciate all the work that's been involved. We also appreciate our links with the local council, Waterford here as well. So we're trying to improve that triangle here in Waterford between ourselves and the college, business through the Waterford Chamber of Commerce, and Waterford City and County Council. And if you get that triangle going in terms of clustering, all things are possible. And I suspect this goes through the whole country. I know it happens elsewhere as well. So that clustering idea, we're very conscious of it here in Waterford and indeed the wider southeast. We're hoping to keep up with that momentum in the next while. So hopefully this time next year we'll all be actually back physically together, but you never know. We'll see. It might be a mix, might be a blended approach next year, but we'll look forward to it. And again, thanks to everybody. So I'm going to leave it at that and say thank you now. Bye-bye.